he said furthermore to me, son of man, son of man, seest thou what they do, even the great abomination that the house of Israel committed here, that I should go far off from my sanctuary? But turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abomination. So here, Ezekiel was shown by God all the abomination that is being done inside the temple. We're supposed to worship God. Okay, so continue reading. And he brought me to the door of the court, and when I looked, behold, a hole in the wall. Then he said unto me, son of man, dig now in the wall. And when I dig in the wall, behold, a door. And he said unto me, go in, and behold, the wicked abomination that they do here. So I went in and saw, and behold, every form of creeping things, and abominable beast, and all idols of the house of Israel portrayed upon the wall round about. So they put all kinds of creeping things and animals to worship there. So they are what? Worshipping the created, the creature that God created instead of the God of heaven. In Prophets and Kings, page 448, in the 6th year of the reign of Zedekiah, remember Zedekiah is the last king of Judah, the Lord revealed to Ezekiel in vision some of the abomination that were being practiced in Jerusalem and within the gate of the Lord's house, and even in the inner court, the chamber of images, and the picture idols, every form of creeping things, and abominable beast, and all the idols of the house of Israel. All these in rapid succession passed before the astonished gaze of the prophet. So here they are what? Hiding all their apostasy, and God revealed it to the prophet Ezekiel. In Ezekiel 8, verse 11 and 12, and there stood before them 70 men of ancient of the house of Israel. So 70, these are the elders of Israel. And in the midst of them stood Jaasaniah, the son of Shaphan, and every man his censer in his hand. So these are actually elders, and they are high priests, because they're holding a censer. And the thick cloud of incense went up. Then said he unto me, son of man, hast thou seen what the ancient of the house of Israel do in the dark? So ancient, or the priest, every man in the chamber of his imagery, for they say the Lord that see is not. So they think that the Lord did not see them. The Lord hath forsaken the earth. So they think that they can hide their sin and apostasy and abominable practices from the Lord. But they cannot, because everything is being seen by God. We cannot hide anything. There is a recording angel that records every action that we do. So we cannot hide everything, and it will be exposed during the judgment. Those who should have been spiritual leaders among the people, the ancients of the house of Israel, or the elders, the priests, to the 70 were seen offering incense before the idolatrous representation that has been introduced into hidden chambers within the sacred precincts of the temple court. The Lord sees us not. The men of Judah flattered themselves as they engaged in their heathenish practices. The Lord hath forsaken the earth. They blasphemously declared. This is from Prophets and Kings, page 448, paragraph 3. Do you think that the Lord does not see them? The Lord sees everything. Okay, according to Lon C.T. Jones, he wrote it from TTR 195, paragraph 2. Neither is, first we have to read Hebrews 4, verse 13. Neither is there any creature that is not manifest in his sight, but all things are naked and open to the eyes of him whom we have to do. So everything that they have did or we do is being seen by God, no matter how much we hide it in secret. Yet by the time that Zedekiah reigned, there was again a serious lapse not only to certain forms of sun worship, but into the open worship of literal sun. So they have already openly worship the sun itself, not only in symbol. Ezekiel was among the captives in Babylon, and by the Spirit of God, he was taken in a vision to Jerusalem and was caused to see the abomination that were being practiced there. First, he was caused to see the image of jealousy in the very entry way to the altar of sacrifice before the house of the Lord. Okay, and the same thing, the same book written by Alon C.T. Jones. He was told to turn, and he would see greater abomination than this. Then he saw, and behold, every form of creeping things and abominable beast, and all the idols of the house of Israel portrayed upon the wall around about. And there stood before them 70 men of ancient elders or priests of the house of Israel. And in the midst of them stood Jaasaniah, the son of Shaphan. And every man his censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. Ezekiel 8, verse 13 and 14. Then he said also unto me, turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abomination than they do. Then he brought me into the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was towards the north. And behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. So here, women weeping for Tammuz. What are women represented in the Bible? Women are represented as churches. So churches, all Christian now, are what? Weeping for Tammuz or worshiping Tammuz. Remember, who's Tammuz? Tammuz's birthday is December 25, and almost all Christianity celebrate that. That includes the Seventh-day Adventists. And Tammuz also was, Semiramis was impregnated in April. That is Easter. That's why there is what? Eggs, there's rabbits, fertility, and Easter, which people celebrate again. Okay. Astarte is a Greek form of Canaanite Athart and the Phoenician Astarte, both of which derive from Arcadian Asdarto, reference to God Ishtar. Remember, Easter celebration or Ishtar. And according to Alon C.T. Jones, all that is meant in this we cannot tell, but this much is certain that in the estimate of Jehovah, as bad as the worship of Astarte, and however much it provoked to jealousy, as bad as the worship of all manners of abominable beasts, as bad as the worship of Tammuz. So all kinds of abominable beasts plus the worship of Tammuz. Remember, Tammuz is son of Nimrod and Semiramis. Okay, and Prophets and Kings, page 448, paragraph 4. And there's were still greater abomination for the prophet. Behold, at the gate leading to the outer, from the outer to the inner court, he was shown women weeping for Tammuz, and within the inner courts of the Lord's house. So women, churches, all Christian churches are worshiping Tammuz. In Ezekiel 8, verse 15 and 16, then said he unto me, hast thou seen this, O son of man? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abomination than this. And he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of the house, between the porch and the altar, were 25 men with their backs towards the temple of the Lord, and their faces towards the east, and they worship the sun towards the east. Remember when Jonathan was presenting that sanctuary, I was having a comment that the sanctuary, when you go inside the sanctuary, you are what? Facing west, because your back should be facing the east, because the east is sun. The Lord was, it's an abomination for the Lord to worship the sun. But instead of worshiping the Lord, you facing the west, what happened? The 25 men they turned their back from the Lord and faced the sun and worshiped the sun towards the east. Prophets and Kings, page 448, paragraph 4. At the door of the temple, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men with their backs towards the temple of the Lord, and their faces towards the east, and they worshiped the sun towards the east. So this is again from Alon City Jones, page 196, paragraph 3. Yet worse than all these, even though in them were embodied some forms of sun worship, more abominable than all this was the setting of the face towards the east. So instead of just worshiping symbolic of the sun, they really face the sun towards the east and worship the sun itself. In the worship of the sun itself, this was to turn the back upon the Lord, to leave him and his worship behind, and in worshiping the visible sun, to choose all that was included in all the forms of its worship that might be known. This was open apostasy, the renunciation of all that was good and the acceptance of all that was bad. Ezekiel 8, verse 17, then said he unto me, hast thou seen this, O son of man? Is it a light thing to the house of Judah that they commit the abomination which they commit here? For they have filled the land with violence and have turned to provoke me to anger. And lo, they put the branch to their nose. In ARSH, January 18, 1898, page 45, paragraph 8, the rejection of all the words of the Lord in counsel and warning. King Jehoiakim himself, with his princes and counselor, persecuted a prophet of the Lord till to escape their murderous hand. He fled to Egypt, but the king sent even to Egypt and had him brought back, then murdered him. They also persecuted Jeremiah and threatened to kill him. A testimony which the Lord gave by the hand of Jeremiah was read to the great assembly in the presence of the temple. The king commanded that it be brought and read to him. Now the king sat in the inner winter house in the 9th month, and there was fire in the hearth burning before him. And it came to pass that when Jehudi had read 3 or 4 leaves, he cut he cut it with a penknife and cast it into the fire that was on the earth until all the roll was consumed in the fire that was on the earth. Jeremiah, this was taken from Jeremiah 36, verse 22 and 23. Okay, and King James Version, okay, Jeremiah 26, verse 22 and 23. And there was also a man that prophesied in the name of the Lord, Urijah, the son of Shemaiah of Kiriath Jearim, who prophesied against the city and against this land according to all the words of Jeremiah. And when Jehoiakim, the king, and all his mighty men and all the princes heard this word, the king sought to put him to death. But when Urijah heard it, he was afraid and fled and went into Egypt. And Jehoiakim, the king, sent him to Egypt, namely Elnathan, the son of Akbor, and certain men with him to Egypt. And they fetched forth Urijah out of Egypt and brought him to Jehoiakim the king, who slew him with a sword and cast his dead body into the graves of common people. So not only that he killed the prophet, but also he buried him to the common people. Again, in ARSH, January 18, 1898, paragraph 45, page 45, paragraph 9, because of all this, the Lord likened Jerusalem to Sodom, declaring that she and Sodom were sisters, and said, as I live, saith the Lord, Sodom thy sister hath not done, she nor her daughter as thou hast done. So here Jerusalem was told by God that, the sins of Sodom is not greater than the sins that Jerusalem, the king Jerusalem, is doing. Thou and thy daughters, behold, this was the iniquity of thy sister Sodom. Pride, fullness of bread, and abundance of idleness was in her and her daughters. Neither did she strengthen the land of the poor and needy. And they were haughty and committed abomination before me, before I took them away as I saw good. So now Jerusalem was a sister to Sodom, but Jerusalem did more abomination than Sodom. Ezekiel 16, verse 48 and 49. As I live, saith the Lord, Sodom thy sister hath not done, she or her daughters, as thou hast done, thou and thy daughters. Behold, this was the iniquity of thy sister Sodom. Pride, fullness of bread, abundance of idleness was in her, and her daughter neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy. So what did God told the ancient Israel during his time, especially in Capernaum, where he did most of his miracles? Matthew 11:23 and 24. And thou, Capernaum, which art exalted unto heaven, shalt be brought down to hell. For if the mighty works which have been done in thee had been done in Sodom, it would have remained until this day. But I say unto you that it shall be more tolerable for the land of Sodom in the day of judgment than for thee. So here, Sodom would have been alive if the things that were done to Israel was done in Sodom. Again, from Alonso T. Jones, all that is meant in this we cannot tell. But this much is certain, that in the estimate of Jehovah, as bad as was the worship of Astarte, and however much it provoked to jealousy, as bad as was the worship of all manners of abominable beasts, as bad as was the worship of Tammuz, yet worse than all these, even though in them were embodied some form of sun worship. More abominable than all this was the setting of the face towards the east and the worship of the sun itself. This was to turn the back upon the Lord, to leave him and his worship behind, and in worshiping the visible sun, to choose all that was included in all forms of its worship that might be known. This was open apostasy, the renunciation of all that was good and the acceptance of all that was bad. So the climax of the children of Israel was when they was starting worshiping the sun. Okay. This is from CAS by Warren Prescott. The sun, okay, the sun was worshipped towards the east, and so worshiping towards the east was the greatest abomination. So the greatest abomination was the worship of the sun. That's why in these last days, when Sunday enforcement will be enforced, what will happen? Prophecy will be fulfilled. We have reference to this in the 8th chapter of Ezekiel, after showing to the prophet a variety of abomination that had come to into the worship on the part of the children of Israel who had departed from the true God. We read the 5th and the 6th verses. Then said he unto me, Hast thou not seen this, O son of man? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abomination than this. And he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were 25 men with their back towards the temple of the Lord, and their faces towards the east, and they worshiped the sun towards the east. And that was the climax of all the abomination that the prophet was shown. So the climax, and the climax again will be the enforcement of Sunday worship. Climax in the S-Day church is when they encourage the people to keep the first day of the week. This is from book SITI, November 23, 1888, paragraph 713, page 713, paragraph 11. As the Son God, he is conceived as the male principle of life and reproduction in nature, and thus in some form of his worship is the patron of the grossest sensuality and even the systematic prostitution. An example of this is found in the worship of Baal Peor in Numbers 25. And in general, the Canaanitish high places where Baal, the male principle, was worshipped in association with the unchaste goddess Asherah, the female principle of nature. So probably this is what Baal and Astarte. This is written by Joseph Elliott Wagoner. Even after the terrible experience of the siege of Jerusalem, this from the time of King Nebuchadnezzar, those who remained in the city did not forsake their